Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting me, and I feel very blessed to be here. Thank you. So I understand that most of you are familiar with the messages of the Sunday Law, but if you're like me, there's aspects of it or details of it that I would like to understand better. So I come to this Sunday Law initiative with my own baggage, meaning my own experience. That's what I'm trying to say. Some of you may be familiar with the fact that I had one view of the Sunday Law in the past. I think we all saw in the last year and even 2024 that we as a movement have been trying to understand exactly what is the beginning of that Sunday Law, what is the waymark. And I think that something pretty unique happened, which is the fact that the different opinions were welcomed. Uh, People sit down and talk to each other, try to use methodology, decide what is correct, what is not. And it was something that was done for everyone. Like all ministries had this experience. So last year at the ICM in France, at least from my perspective, it seemed like we arrived to a conclusion and to a unified position about what was the waymark of the Sunday Law. And how we were certain using the correct methodology. But once we get to that point, not everything is still clear. So that's why I'm understanding we are in this process because there's still things to be understood. And it is my understanding that as we study the Sunday Law, this will ultimately take us to the direction of our next focus. Yeah, but by next focus, I mean the following waymarks, the most immediate waymark, etc., etc. There's only safety in our understanding of any future waymark if we did the most we could to understand the previous one. I have received some questions about the Sunday law that I have. Um, I probably won't be able to answer all, either because of time or because I'm not able to answer them. But before we do that, I I would like to know the opinion of some of you. Um, like, is everyone uh comfortable with the understanding that we have about the Sunday law today? Is there someone have a question about some of the aspects of the explanation? Or someone who still doesn't even see uh, why it is July 18th? So, what do you think?
I can speak for myself. It's Elisa. I think for myself, most of the elements are understood. In terms of like it's July 18. Enfin, ce que je comprends, c'est par rapport au 18 juillet. Oui. But there's still some details that I obviously I don't fully understand yet. And but for now, I don't have questions as of right now, but usually they come along the discussions.
Thank you so much. So, if one of those little details that you have questions about, you remember, please let us know.
So I still have issues understanding Trump being the Oval Office. Et t'as dit quoi la suite? Oh, so the throne being the Oval Office and Trump being the woman. Still have issues wrapping my head around this part.
I get it. That's a good point. Okay. That's good to start. Um, Anyone else have something to say? Another question?
Another question I have, so I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer it. I asked it to the other speakers, but they didn't have time to answer it. It's the link between Sunday Law and the King of the South. But for now, none of the four speakers had time to answer my question.
Can you say the question again, the specific
So
question?
it's what's the link between the Sunday law that we know now and the King of the South?
Okay. Okay, that's a good one too. Uh,
I had asked you, I think, this question also, but I don't know if you'll be able to answer it this time.
I might not, but I hope any of the other speakers. Well, I will share my screen. I will try to give a brief overview of and see how I understand Revelation 17. To begin with, in my own experience, I had an idea about the Sunday law previously. And all of you are familiar with the fact that there were primarily three dates that people had. It was July, November, or January. And on the surface, it is clear that all those positions agree on something. The word that it was used during the ICM was, it is this election cycle. I will say it in my own words. The thing that we all agree with was that the Sunday law was the arrival of Trump this second time. There was no question about it. Like the Sunday law, it's now, and it's going to be the period of Trump. Not that we know how long it's going to be, but that we know it starts now with this administration. That's when the word election cycle comes along. Meaning, it's not the election day, but there's a whole process, a whole system for an election. In order for any country, but specifically the United States, to go from having one president sitting on the Oval Office to another one, isn't as simple as simply voting one day and then we change presidents. Every party has to first decide who is the most suitable candidate. After those battles of primaries, the parties choose one person. Then these two people are going to campaign. So if we do a line of the election cycle, I'm leaving outside other details. I'm just focusing on the main ones. So we said we had the primaries. and they end up with the nomination. In 2024, the nomination for the Republicans would happen in July. And for the Democrats was August, the following month. And this moment begins the campaign. Now there's two formal candidates running for the presidency. The campaign ends with the election. And we know that is November. We could include December. And this begins the, I guess there's different ways to put it, but this is the transfer of power. There's a process in between you won the election and the moment when you are the sitting president. And it'll end in January the 20th. And this whole thing is called the election cycle. So we need to choose whether the Sunday law is in between the primaries and the campaign, whether it was November or January. And that's when I had my own theory and I was thinking, oh, I think it fits with January. And someone else has another theory and another theory. Either all three are incorrect or one of them is correct. And that's when we have to choose what I call, what is our source of truth? For January, I could summarize it as I had the four anchors of Acts 27. So I'm going to put Acts 27. I'm not very familiar with the proofs for November. But I would say that it is a combination of Acts 27, someone told me several times about this quote from Ellen White, where she speaks about the moment of shipwreck. And she said something about they arrived to the island in that rainy November, something like that. But she says November. I think there's also aspects of Ellen White in the idea of November. So I would put Ellen White. I think we as Adventists are familiar with some of her quotes. And she has this idea about the people asked for the Sunday law, something like that. Like it is something that people ask for, and then someone gives it to them. That's when it makes sense. Yeah, it has to be when the people elect him. So that's another way to arrive to November. Then we have July. I think I can put as well Acts 27, especially as it connects with Pyrrhus. So within the story of Pyrrhus, we have, I'm going to put QFMG. Oh, thank you.
Oui,
Please
Pedro,
go.
c'est juste si tu as la citation avec le mois de novembre, je suis preneuse.
If ever you have the quote for November with a voice code, if ever you have it, that would be great. Not now.
Okay.
Merci.
Thank you. I know it is in a book called The Life of Paul, but I will send it to Shimen afterwards and so you see at this point, and we experienced during the whole 2025 year, there are different ideas. There seems to be different ways to express it. They all kind of make sense, but not all can be correct. So I will say this, even though maybe it wasn't said by anybody. In order to decide, we need to choose a different source of truth. Imagine like, no, I'm not using this, I'm not using this, and I'm not using this. Not saying that all three are incorrect, but saying there has to be another way to arrive to the correct date. And whatever that is, it has to be based upon Daniel and Revelation. That seems to be a big statement. If you really want to prove anything, you have to prove it with Daniel and Revelation. What gives me license to make that statement? What do you think? Isn't Acts 27 enough, or the story of Pyrrhus? Isn't Ellen White enough to help us decide what's the date? I heard that someone posted. Well, thank you. How can I be so sure that if we're going to prove anything, we will have to do it with Daniel and Revelation? Any idea?
Because it's the same book and both talk about the end of times.
That's a good one. So you're saying Acts 27 is not talking about end time, but Daniel Revelation is. That's what you're saying, Shime?
I think that in every book of the Bible, there's a notion of end of time or end of great controversy. But even more Daniel and Revelation. They really give us the final story. As Daniel was saying, they give us the Chazon vision, the big vision. And both those books are complementary or even the same. But they approach the question of the end of time differently.
Thank you. That's a good point. Basically, what I'm taking from you is that they are at a different level. Like Daniel and Revelation is up here, and in terms of prophecy, and then the other books are below.
If you want to explain it this way, yes, you can.
Who, what is the source of the information, for example, contained in Acts 27? Where that information came from? Is it God? Is it for you or for anybody? Like, where does that thing came from? Does it came from God or comes from the writer? We know Luke is the writer of Acts 27. He went through experiences with Paul. He collected information from other sources. And specifically, he was in the boat or the ship where was Paul in Acts 27. And all he did was explain and talk about the story. But if we make the same question for Daniel and John, where do they take their information from? Is it experiences they had, ideas they had in their mind? Or someone told them directly, there's this beast and this thing and this other thing, and it represents this and this? So I would say that the main difference is that, for example, if we go to Daniel 11, the chapter that we use a lot, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Gabriel speaking to Daniel. And I think it is also Gabriel and sometimes Jesus speaking to John in the book of Revelation. And even God says to Daniel, and this is not for you. You're not going to live through this experience. Seal the book is for the time of the end. So it's like it was a book written to talk about the time of the end. Those were not ideas that came from the mind of John or Daniel. They were told what to write. So that's how we see. Definitely Daniel and Revelation is a different thing. These books were made to understand end time prophecy. Anything else that we have done, it's application. You can call it recycling. We know there's more things hidden in the other books, and that's why we use it. But that wasn't their original purpose. So the safe way to go is we do Daniel first, or Revelation, and depending on what we understand from that, we interpret the other books. What I'm trying to say is that I cannot force Acts 27 to Daniel and Revelation. It has to be Daniel and Revelation who determines what Acts 27 is saying. Second point, why in these books are we supposed to find the answer? Where does the idea of a Sunday law even come from? Where does the idea that there's a final kingdom of prophecy who will persecute people? The whole thing, it's from Daniel and Revelation. So of course, if there's any Sunday law to come, it has to be explained in Daniel and Revelation. And so the second thing that happens is, well, let's go to the places where we find the Sunday law. We know about Daniel 11:41. We know that the glorious land is conquered here by the king of the north. So the Sunday law, it's the conquering of a kingdom. At some point before the Sunday law, the glorious land is not conquered. And then it is conquered. So there's a before and after. And what changes is something that happened to the glorious land. But there's no much else. How can we decide when? How exactly the glorious land is conquered? What does it mean? It is, of course, a useful chapter, but we say we need a little bit more than that. So then we go to Revelation 13, the other famous chapter. We do the line. We put the Sunday law again. We say lamb here, dragon here. This nation of the USA, something happens to it that it stopped being a lamb and now becomes a dragon. But when is it? Why is not 1989? Why is not 2001 and the Patriot Act and all the powers that Bush had? So we need to decide, what is it that makes this nation now be a dragon and the lamb is dead? And that's when we go to the chapter that Adventists are pretty scared about. Adventists are experts in Revelation 13. But then in Revelation 17, things get a little bit complicated. We know it is the story of the beast and the woman. So I say this is the beast, and that's the woman. And then there's a verse specifically that says, it was, it is not, and it will be. So it was, this is past tense. Then it says it's not, this is present. And I will put will be in the future. So then we go and say, okay, we have a beast with the woman. And we say, when is it? Yeah. Yes, I'm talking about her state. Thank you for that. So that's verse 8. And we need to determine, when is it that it was, that it is not, and that will be. So if the beast, we are told it has 7 heads, this is not new. We know, and Adventists know, it is speaking about all the different phases of these bad kingdoms. All of those dispensations. And it is pretty easy to see that when it says that the beast will return, that's simply the last head. It returns in 7, simply because we know it will return and then it will be destroyed forever. So the final coming back, the final comeback of the beast has to be the last moment. So that's why it is not only us, people know this has to be the last head. So it had to be the 7. If we go backwards, the period when this beast is not has to be the 6. And what is the period that the beast was in the past?
« 538-1798 ».
Thank you for that. And before that, the beast was dead?
Non, elle était en vie. Donc on remonte jusqu'à Babylone, si je...
So we could say the beast was from 9 to 5. And this is the anomaly, the period that it is not. Is that okay? And that's when we say, and also the words in Revelation says that the beast was in the bottomless pit. The symbology helps us see that it's saying that it is alive. It is also alive in 7. But it has to be dead during 6. So once we get to this point, we have to decide. I will put the beast was alive during 5, during 1 to 5. It is also alive during 7. But this is also the moment when the parable gets a little bit tricky. Because if we are very clear what the chapter is saying, is that the beast, it's always, so I can make it as big as the line. From 1 to 7, it is the same, the body of that beast with the 7 heads. But then it is the heads that become the symbol of each specific dispensation. So we could say you have a head in each of the 7. And the 6th head is the moment when the beast is dead. So the beast is dead, but the head is alive, even though we know the head is part of the body. So this is just for understanding that if we try to apply real life logic to how the body of this beast works, it doesn't make sense. We have the whole beast, but it is subdivided in 7 heads. So we have the question, what makes the beast to be dead during 6? What do you all think?
Personne n'a vu. Ben, on a appris
Well, we learned
que que la bête, elle est vivante
that the beast is alive
quand quand la bête, ou quand la tête, pardon, quand la tête adopte les idées de la femme.
When the head agrees with the idea of the woman.
Et donc, si la bête est morte, c'est que dans ce cas-là, la tête n'a pas pris l'idéologie de la femme.
And so if the beast is dead, it means that the head did not agree with the ideology of the woman.
Thank you. So you're saying the element that decides when the beast is alive or dead is the woman.
Oui.
And that seems to be the logical conclusion, because that's the only thing that can make this sixth head be the moment when the beast is not alive. That conclusion would be the only way we can say, yes, there's still a sixth head of the beast, but think of the beast as being dead during the sixth. And the only thing that can make the beast different in the sixth is if it's the woman is not there.
Je dois ajouter si la mauvaise femme n'est pas là.
I want to add if the bad woman is here.
Okay. Yeah, good. There's only a bad woman in Revelation 17. I know we can go deeper and extract other things, but I want to stay on the surface first. So we have talked about this several times already. If you have a beast and you have what the Bible calls the woman, there is a natural. This is a story of a natural phenomenon. In human history, we used animals. We sit upon them. We know we sit upon horses, elephants, camels. So we know the beast is an animal and the woman is a human. And these two, they are in a relationship. The relationship of one who controls the other. Animals don't go for humans and say, hey, climb on top of me and, go faster to other places. The interest comes from the human element. They are the ones who want to go there. And why do a human want to go to the beast? What does it have to offer? What does the animal have to give to the
Qu'est-ce que
human?
l'animal doit donner?
His freedom.
Is that freedom? The animal gives the freedom? What type of freedom?
Because otherwise, because the human has to I forgot the name, but has to dump the beast before riding it.
I think I don't follow, sorry.
The human has like the wild horses before that you have to domesticate first before riding them.
And why would a human want to domesticate an animal in the first place? Not any animals, animals that you can sit upon.
Because otherwise you cannot use them in their natural way.
And what do you want to use them? I'm sorry.
What's the question?
And you want to use them, why?
To serve you and your interests.
Okay.
Moi,
Anyone else?
moi, je dirais c'est parce que l'animal, il a de la force, il a de la puissance et il a de la rapidité. Ce que
I would
lui-
say that the animal has strength, speed, that the human doesn't have.
Thank you. That was more or less what I was wanting to go. The animal offers something that the human doesn't have. So humans have conquered nations using elephants and horses, for example, on camels. You could say humans can kill more people and conquer more nations. You arrive faster to places. So the human element that uses the animal has that interest. I want to use it. So if we are in the middle of the sixth kingdom, and this means that this is the sixth head, is a head that the woman is not controlling. But at some point that woman will come back. And we say, yes, that moment is this way, Mark, and we call it Sunday law. So it is already very different to the other two chapters, but at the same time, similar. There's a transition when the glorious land is not conquered, and then it is. There's also a transition when the lamb is the lamb, and then it's not, and then comes the dragon. So there are transitions. We're saying, yes, here there's a transition as well when the woman comes back. But now the story is not bringing the aspect of it was lamb and there was dragon. Or when the glorious lamb was free and now is not. Now we're basically saying the Sunday law is when the woman sits back in the animal. So this entity that we said that was dead, that was called the beast, was dead because the woman was not controlling anything. So then all speakers agreed that it had to happen in the election cycle of 2024. And everyone knows that it has to do with the arrival of Trump the second time. So we know Trump is the key component of this election cycle. If it was another Republican, like from the old school, for example, in the primaries, Trump was fighting against Nikki Haley. However conservative Nikki Haley might be, if she was the candidate, you can be sure we would have never said that the Sunday law was 2024. It was because of the return of this person who, by the way, tried to illegally take power in 2021. So now he's back. And now we have to interpret Revelation 17. And we say, well, who is the beast and who is the woman? I don't want to go through all the steps, but it's pretty easy to see the beast has to be the government, the seat of government. That institution that has a lot of power. That's what's useful. That's what the woman wants. Then we need to know, well, who is the woman? At some point, I thought the woman was simply, I don't know, MAGA or Trump supporters. Before you were told the woman was Trump, what did you think it was? Any of you? What ideas you had about the woman? What was it?
Église?
The church?
The church? Like a bad church. What church specifically?
Oui, la mauvaise femme.
Yeah, the bad woman.
And what church did you think it was?
La Rome papale?
Papal Rome?
Okay. So papacy. You would include the Protestants in any way?
Yes.
So like all the bad churches. Perfect. Any other idea? So we see, I had believed in some point it was MAGA. So this is option 2. I said MAGA. That was mine option. Anybody else? What did the rest think? What was the woman?
At one point, we said that it was culture.
That one is interesting. Culture.
J'ai inclus
So-
aussi dans la culture Pedro. J'ai inclus aussi une forme de nationalisme. Après, j'ai pas vraiment pensé que c'était ça, Mais je
So I
l'inclus.
also include in culture a type of nationalism. I don't think it's that, but
Je l'inclus dedans, dans la culture. À un
I
moment,
include
il a
it.
fallu définir, ouais. Se dire, est-ce que le nationalisme n'a pas une forme de pensée, d'idéologie, quoi.
At some point when we had to define what it was and culture, we maybe were asking ourselves, okay, is does nationalism have a part in this somehow?
Okay. And we could put nationalism, sexism, and all the bad isms, right?
Oui.
By definition, we know it has to be bad because it's called a bad woman. So there's already something interesting going on here. Think about option one, which is the one that I had. MAGA is not a person, it's an ideology. Papacy and Protestantism. Is it an ideology or is it something else? What is it?
Bah, c'est un groupe de personnes qui a une idéologie.
It's a group of person who has an ideology.
So it's not the ideology itself. And because we are not sure if we're going to call them group of people or one person, you
It can
you
also be
would
an institution.
exactly. So that's the point when the speaker said, let's give a general definition. Let's call this entity. Meaning it's not an ideology, it's something that has an ideology. So then we go to culture, and it is an ideology. So when we do this, and then we go to Revelation 17, the actual symbol, woman, beast. Of the two symbols, one, we know for sure it is a political institution that has a lot of power. In all the other kingdoms, that's what it was. It was a throne that was used to do bad things by the woman. Today it's no longer called throne because we live in, I don't know, in a more democratic world. So the institutions change a lot, but there is still a seat of power that can do many things. This seat of power can decide when to launch war, where to launch missiles. This seat of power can even decide when to finish this earth just by clicking a button. We know that. But someone has to do that. So we are saying that the bad woman, it's represented by a symbol of a human. It's a human, an ideology, or an entity that has ideology. So that's when we know the woman cannot be MAGA because MAGA is the ideology. We could say MAGA is the ideology that the woman has, if you want to say that. You could say the culture, but that's not the woman. And then we are left with these churches. And we ask the question, are these churches controlling the beast of the United States? Let me put a third option. Well, now it's actually the second. This is the first, and this is the second. What if I simply say the woman is the voters? It is a group of people. We could say it is an entity as well. Those voters wanted this president to be in power. And they want things to be done. But within the voter group, there's too many different people. With many different desires. And it would be very easy to prove that Trump, it would be very easy to prove that Trump, you can translate that, isn't giving everything that the voters ask for. He's not giving to the churches everything they ask for. He's not giving everything he's the people who wants, do you remember the Epstein files? All those people wanted those files, and he said, I'm not giving it to you. The point I'm trying to make, for the woman to qualify as one of these two options, they have to have full control of what? Of the office. I'm going to call it the Oval Office. And we know they don't. If Trump was a puppet, we could say, but he has proven time and time again that at the end of the day, he's going to do whatever he wants. He doesn't care even about his own supporters. So when everyone talking about the Sunday law agreed that 2024 would be that because of Trump, was because either they believed Trump was being controlled by something really bad, either people or someone, or because himself as a person, he is that bad woman. So I think evidence points to the fact that it's him making the decisions. He only do things when it benefits himself. We have a question. Sophie?
Oui, oui, je comprends ce que tu dis par rapport à Trump,
I understand what you're saying about Trump,
mais j'ai quand même quelques difficultés et je crois que ça rejoignait la question de Chimène.
but I still have some issues, and I think it goes along with Shimen's questions.
Quand on personnifie la mauvaise femme
When we personify the evil woman
comme étant Trump,
as being Trump,
quand on regarde les autres entités,
when we look at the other entities,
que l'on dise la papauté ou les protestants,
whether we say it's papacy or Protestants,
on sait qu'elle peut être représentée par différentes personnes.
we know that it can be represented by different people.
Mais quand on dit Trump, c'est la mauvaise femme,
But because we say that Trump is the bad woman,
enfin, inévitablement, je me pose la question, après son mandat, comment on va dire, enfin, ce sera qui la mauvaise femme? Est-ce que ce sera une personne ou est-ce que c'est censé représenter un groupe de personnes?
obviously, when Trump will be at the end of his term, are we gonna have to call it a different person or a group of people?
Voilà, c'est pour ça que j'ai encore du mal quand on personnifie la mauvaise femme avec Trump.
Which is why I still have some issues when we personify the bad woman as being Trump.
Thank you for that. It's an extremely relevant question. But that's exactly what you said. What happens if tomorrow we have an election again? And the winner is, I don't know, Michelle Obama. Or even Kamala Harris. Who would be controlling the beast now? The bad woman or the good woman?
Aucune. Puisqu'on a dit que quand c'est la bonne femme, il n'y a pas de bête.
Because we said that when it's the good woman, there's no beast.
Right. We will have to say that the beast died again.
Mais
And we
en
would
imaginant
have,
que ce serait, je dis des bêtises, comment il s'appelle son président adjoint? Voilà. Mais imaginons que ce soit J.D. Vance.
But let's imagine that it's J.D. Vance, for example.
exactly. What would it be for you? Would it be still the beast and the bad woman or a different thing?
Pour moi, oui. Pour moi, la bête, ce serait une mauvaise femme et la bête.
For me, it would be a bad woman. And the beast,
Mais est-ce qu'on continuera à personnifier en disant que la mauvaise femme, c'est J.D. Vance ou est-ce qu'il représente, lui comme Trump, quelque chose d'autre?
would we continue and say that J.D. Vance would be the bad woman, or would we say that Trump and him would represent something else?
I think J.D. Vance will be the bad woman. And this is not new. Let me put it this way. Oh, we just finished. Well, we could stop here and then just pick it up. I think, is a good place to stop. How do we do? Should I pray or we just stop? Okay. Dear God, thank you again for the precious opportunity of studying together. Help us continue strengthen our understanding. In the name of Jesus, amen.